Custody can be one of the most difficult and emotionally charged issues parents will face, whether it's in a divorce action or in a separate custody action. My name is Bradley Supernaw. I'm an attorney in Nebraska. This video will discuss Nebraska law. If you're watching from another state, it's important to consult an attorney in your state because the laws might be different. Also, this video is only intended for informational purposes. It is not intended as legal advice. Every case is going to be different, and so the laws are going to apply to every case differently. Before we get to the basics of how custody is determined, there are some background terms that need to be defined. Legal custody. Legal custody is the ability of the parents to make fundamental decisions about the children. This involves things, for example, their education, their health care, and religion. Physical custody, as the name might implies, deals with where the child lives physically, where they are each day, each holiday, for example. One question that often comes up when dealing with custody situations is whether the court is biased toward one parent or the other. In Nebraska, courts are prohibited from favoring one parent over the other. That doesn't necessarily mean that every situation is going to end up with joint custody. There are factors that will be in favor of one parent or the other, and we'll get into those in just a moment. Legal custody, in my experience, very often is joint. The parents are expected to make important decisions about their children together. If the parents are not able to make decisions together, sometimes one parent will be named as a final decision maker. But even if that parent is named as the final decision maker, they really should be discussing it with the other parent. Joint physical custody is less common. A lot of times this has to do with practical reasons, but it can be for a variety of other reasons. Also, it should be noted that joint physical custody is not necessarily 50-50. It can be 60-40, for example. And there are lots of ways to get to a joint custody arrangement. For example, it could be 1 week with one parent, the next week with the other parent, and alternating back and forth each week. There's another joint physical custody option that I have seen is when the children are with one parent on Monday and Tuesday, with the other parent on Wednesday and Thursday, and then Friday and Saturday and Sunday are alternated between the two parents. Personally, I don't think what it's called really matters, whether it's called joint custody or not. I know for some parents that's a big deal what it's called, but when you get a parenting plan that is approved by the court, your time and your rights with the children are spelled out in that parenting plan, whether it's labeled joint custody or not. Something else that needs to be defined is the best interest of the child. In Nebraska, custody determinations are made based on what is the best interest of the child. There are certain statutory factors that will need to be considered. These include the child's relationship with each parent, the general health, welfare, and social behavior of the child, whether there is credible evidence of abuse on a family member or household member, or whether there is credible evidence of child abuse or domestic violence abuse. Finally, the court can take into consideration the child's wishes. In Nebraska, there is no particular age where the court will start taking that into consideration. It's based on the maturity of the child and their reasons for wanting to be with one parent or the other. For example, a judge recently told me a story about one case where the child says, well, Dad's going to buy me an ATV, so I want to live with Dad. That's not a reason for the child to live with one parent or the other, and the judge did not take that into consideration. Also, just because the child wants to live with one parent or the other doesn't necessarily mean that that's what the judge's decision is ultimately going to be. And that also is not based on age. So it can be a 17-year-old giving reasonable explanation as to why he or she wants to live with mom or wants to live with dad, and the judge still can make a decision that is opposite of what that child wants. So it's just one factor, and it's not a determining factor. There are also several non-statutory factors. These are things that the Supreme Court of Nebraska has told lower courts that they need to take into consideration. These include the moral fitness of each parent and can include the sexual conduct of each parent. It includes the respective environments offered by each parent, the emotional relationship between each parent and the child, the age, sex, and health of the child and the parents, the effects on the child resulting from either continuing or disrupting a relationship with one parent or the other, the attitude and stability of each parent's character, and finally, the parent's capacity to provide for the physical care and educational needs of the child. You will notice in both of those lists that I did not mention the financial situation of either parent. That is because in most such cases, the financial situation of the parents is not a factor in the best interest of the child. That only comes into play if it affects one of those situations. For example, if a parent is unable to provide a home or unable to provide for the health of the child. So finally, after all of that, let's get into how custody decisions are actually made. So during a case, and again, this can be either during a divorce where children are involved, or it can be in a separate custody action, the parents will try to develop a parenting plan on their own. Often this will include mediation. Mediation is when a neutral third party, often a lawyer but not always, will try to facilitate the communication between the parents and try to get the parents to kind of come to an agreement. In Nebraska, we've got some very good mediators who do a very good job of getting the parents to decide on most things, maybe not on everything, but getting very close to a decision. And then after the mediation, sometimes the parents will work out those final few things, or sometimes it'll end up going before a judge. The parenting plan deals with both legal and physical custody and will state when the children are with each parent. The parenting plan also includes a holiday schedule, so the parents know which holidays the children are going to be with them, and which holidays the children are going to be with another parent. Very often the holiday schedule alternates holidays between each parent. So for example, in odd number of years, one parent might have Memorial Day, and in even number of years, the other parent would have Memorial Day. Parenting plans can also include some vacation time. So for example, it might say that each parent will have 1 or 2 weeks of uninterrupted parenting time with the children. And that's there to give the ability of each parent to have a family vacation that includes the children that are subject to the parenting plan. If the parents are able to come to an agreement, a parenting plan will be drawn up and submitted to the court for approval. If the court does approve the parenting plan, it has the same force and effect as any other court order. I did another video on contempt, and parenting plans are often a source of motions for a contempt citation, whether they are parenting plans developed by the court or parenting plans agreed to by the parents. If the parents are unable to come to an agreement or unable to come to an agreement on certain issues, then it goes before the court in a final hearing. And this is basically a trial. It'll be in front of the judge. There's no jury in family law trials. Each side will have their opportunity to present their evidence and argue why the parenting plan should be one way or the other. And then the judge ultimately will make that decision. And the judge will make that decision based on the best interest of the children factors that I discussed earlier in the video. So thank you for watching this video. I hope it was informative. Again, if you're outside of Nebraska, it's going to be a little bit different. And again, every case, every family, every situation is different. So how these factors apply and how things are ultimately achieved is going to be different for each family.